All right. So, welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. This is episode number 60. I'm that other dude, Andrew, and I'm joined as always by Heather. And today it was my choice of groups that we were going to listen to. So, Heather made the selections. And today we are going to listen to a group called Orodruin, which I kept for some reason I had a mental block. I kept typing in like Orodruin. I would switch the D and the R, or I would drop the second R. And then it was only afterwards that I realized that I guess Orodruin is another name for Mount Doom in the Lord of the Rings series of books. So there we go. They only have one album that's been released so far called Ruins of Eternity. So that's basically everything we chose from. And initially, I discovered them because I went to Metal Archives again, or Encyclopedia Metallum, which is becoming one of my favorite resources. And I put in Purple Hill Witch, and then they have an option where it can recommend bands who are similar to Purple Hill Witch. And this was one of the Gotes had been one of the previous suggestions. Orodruin is another suggestion, and we'll get into that. They don't necessarily sound 100% like Purple Hill Witch, but I could also see where they gave the recommendation. So let's jump right in. This is Orodruin. They're from Rochester, New York. Just like my pal from when I was working at Big League Theatricals in New York, Doug Beeman. He was from Rochester, New York. I just felt the need to give him a shout out. But anyway, the first track we're going to listen to, or that Heather has already put a playlist together. So if you would like to listen to it before you listen to us discuss it, check out the playlist. The first track is Man of Peace. This is off of Ruins of Eternity. And what did you think of Man of Peace?
I saw a comment on Bandcamp that said they had successfully crossed the bridge of new wave of British heavy metal and traditional doom, and I thought that was the perfect description for them. I noticed that they're from Rochester, and that's where my favorite band, King Buffalo, is from. This music has a mythical, fantastical characteristic to it. It's very enchanting.
Yeah, you and I spoke briefly before we started recording, and the band Iron Maiden was one that we both said Orodruin reminded us of. I guess if you had slowed it down. Subsequently, after listening to the music and then seeing a couple more comments, I thought of other bands who it reminded me of. But this song actually reminded me a little bit of the opening to the track "A National Acrobat" by Black Sabbath. It's just really melodic. It's sort of you had used the term fantastical. And it definitely is. It's very sort of orchestral in a way, fantastic, very melodic. You can definitely tell it's doom, but there's so much more. It's like you had said, it's like new wave of British heavy metal slowed down. And then in the last third, there's some really cool dual guitar solos, and then like an impressive bluesy chord progression like Iron Maiden. That's so. There we go. So that was Man of Peace. And then next up was Grave Illusion.
I like the storytelling aspect to the songs, and I feel like we're walking through the pages of a fantasy novel, listening to these songs. That's kind of what their album cover looks like too. It looks like you're walking into a fantasy land. The guitar has a classic sound, and I like how it goes faster towards the end of the song. These songs can really get your imagination going.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the name was picked from, Mount Doom and Lord of the Rings, I think they've done a great job capturing that sort of feel that you would get reading, the trilogy of those books, just of a grand adventure, something needing to happen. That's really fantastic. Um, yeah, again, this is reminiscent of Iron Maiden to me, with a bluesy breakdown and an up tempo feel. Um, just the phrase melodic doom keeps coming to mind. Um, Not that doom typically isn't melodic, but this is sort of like a unique thing that what they're doing with it is not something I typically hear out of doom. So, at least lately. Um, but Yeah, and then the last track was Voice in the Dark.
Yeah, I like how the singer's voice is clear, strong, and powerful, but there's still a softness to it. The song has really cool guitar work. As I listened, I was reminded of both Iron Maiden and Dio, which were two of my favorites. Not just with the music, but also with the themes they have for their songs. I like how the song ends with the lyric, "Let me see the light again." I feel like it's hopeful.
Yeah, Voice in the Dark, I said, was the most doomy of the three songs we listened to. And then I realized who it reminded me of outside of Iron Maiden was Pentagram, Witchfinder General, and Pagan Altar, which were sort of three. Well, Pentagram had been around since the early 70s, but Witchfinder General and Pagan Altar are some of the like early 80s, mid 80s um, doom metal bands that are kind of like on the Mount Rushmore for this sort of soaring operatic vocal, melodic doom. I think you could sort of categorize doom at that time. There's like the Saint Vitus doom, which is more on the heavier side, um, and then you have like this kind of more new wave of British heavy metal type doom, if that makes sense. And by the way, I could be completely wrong in my analysis of this, but this is just personally how I choose to think about it. Um, but yeah, if you're not into any of those bands or you haven't heard of them, Witchfinder General, Pagan Altar, definitely check them out. They put out a lot of good records, and I feel like Orodruin has sort of taken the the torch and is now contemporary band that is making great music of this melodic doom variety. So I hope you enjoyed it. Um, I certainly did. And then next up, we've got either Burning Sister, and I think we both listened to a different album, and then or Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. Do you have a preference?
How about Brothers of the Sonic Cloth?
Okay, Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. They are from Seattle, and this is a self-titled album also called Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. And what are your thoughts on them?
This is some massive sludge. What's interesting to me is it's not all sludgy. The second song, Empires of Dust, it's so slow and doomy with really low, almost growling vocals. It seems almost like funeral doom. You can almost feel the despair. As the album goes on, it gets into death metal territory. It seems like every song is different and represents a melding of many different genres of metal, with doom at the forefront and then weaving other metal in. The songs have different vocal stylings. Some are like yelling, some growling, some singing, but it never really sounds the same. And then to keep things really interesting, the album ends with a piano outro. Sometimes I want to listen to something really heavy, and this album definitely satisfied that desire. It's also introspective, and to end on the lightness of the piano, I thought was a really thoughtful touch.
Cool. Yeah, this was interesting because I hadn't known this beforehand, but this is one of Tad Doyle's music projects. He had a band, um, one of the heavier grunge bands during the grunge era called Tad. Um, I know that they would probably. I don't think they were as well known, um, as Soundgarden or Nirvana, but I think in the Seattle scene they were definitely very well known. I know they toured with Nirvana at one point, so learning that this was the new band from someone who'd primarily been, a titan in the grunge era, it was really interesting to sort of see that where that this sort of derived from someone who had been in a completely different genre before and is sort of following a different track, or just that whatever the next logical progression is. And there was someone on Bandcamp. This was this was written in Italian, and I translated it on Google Translate. So I hope I got it correct. But it reads, Brothers of the Sonic Cloth sounds very different from Tad's usual music, a more eclectic project with post-metal sounds and doom explosions. The result is superb. The alternation between post-metal and sludge makes the tracks very deep. Brothers of the Sonic Cloth is a journey into the depths of heavy metal. Sometimes when I see something that just really captures the essence of what we're talking about, I just choose to read that instead of coming up with my own insight. So I forgot the gentleman's name or the lady's name who wrote that, but originally it was in Italian, so I'm guessing they're from Italy. But anyway, thank you. So yeah, definitely if you're into like really heavy, almost sludge, or sludge, then this is a good album for you to check out. And then last but not least, we've got Burning Sister from Denver, Colorado. I listened to the Burning Sister EP, and I think you listened to something else, although I forgot the title of the record.
Yeah, I listen to Mile High Downer Rock.
Yes, Mile High Downer Rock. Okay, what were your thoughts on Mile High Downer Rock?
That one that came out in last year, 2022. This is like heavy psychedelic, but more on the extreme end, like acid rock infused doom. There's some really cool synthesizer, and in some songs I thought it sounded like an organ. It's also really low and heavy with lots of fuzz. The vocals sound like they're floating out there on a cloud. My favorite part of the album is the song The Messenger, which is really spacey, psychedelic, and then it goes into the song Cloven Tongues, and it's like the bottom drops out. It's like boom, and then this super heavy doom. That was very enjoyable, and I noticed they're from Denver. It seems like there's an awesome music scene going on in Denver. There's some great bands out there, and another one of my favorites, Pale Horse Pale Rider, is from Denver too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think Denver is one of those places where there is a really cool and very very vibrant scene, um, similar to Chicago, as you've shown me in A Fistful of Faceful. We did the Illinois Doom scene Um, Sometimes I find it interesting. There are certain places that you wouldn't expect to have a vibrant doom scene, like Wyoming or Nashville, and yet they I think there's a pretty heavy scene there too. Anyway, I'm digressing. So I listened to the self-titled EP called Burning Sister, um, and again, this is from a Bandcamp comment from Highfalutin Peasant, and they wrote, Burning Sister plays in an admittedly crowded field, but possess a unique ability to balance a simultaneously mellow and energetic quality. Every track herein is a certified jam. Um, I thought this album had more of a stoner feel to it, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the between albums they began to incorporate more of the sort of acid rock that you had picked up on, um, or whether or not I just need to go back and re-listen to this album again. But either way, another great another great contemporary band. It's always fun to discover, not that I discovered any of these bands by any stretch, or we discovered any of these bands, but it's always cool to find bands who are carrying on the tradition of making killer jams in the mold of the bands that we used to like. So there we go. I'm sorry you froze there for a sec. Um, all right, well, I guess that's it. It's only this is a short episode today. Orodruin only has the one album, but it is a good one. I recommend checking it out, as I do Burning Sister and Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. And then, of course, we'll be back next week with episode 61, which will be Heather's Choice. So until then, uh, keep wearing your fedoras perched high and listening to awesome music. And we will see you next week.
Bye.